Are Spurs fans expecting way too much from Blake Wesley? And we got a fan question to answer.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey guys, this is Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia. It's morphin' time.
Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kens 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Pick a platform, you'll find Locked On Spurs and the rest of the Locked On podcast, and you can subscribe to right now. Hey, what are we talking about today? Blake Wesley. Yeah, we're going to talk about him again. Why? It looks like some Spurs fans are kind of not on the Blake Wesley bandwagon, and they're expecting a lot from him, like a way lot. Like, I don't know, but we're going to just address that with our guest, James Pledger from San Antonio Sports Star, in just a bit. And then he's going to help me answer a fan question regarding the Spurs and what are they doing with all these trades and amassing draft picks. So we're going to get into that later on in this episode of Locked On Spurs. But before we do that, speaking about Blake Wesley and expectations and patience, last I checked, this team was still very young. Last I checked, this team has a bunch of teenagers on there, even guys that are not old enough to drink yet, let alone players that still need seasoning. And Blake Wesley is one of those guys. We'll get into his numbers later on the show, but he was kind of in and out of the rotation and let alone G League San Antonio system last season, and didn't really get too much NBA minutes. Now, a lot of fans are a little, I don't want to say upset, but we're just expecting a lot more out of him during the recent Summer League play, whether it was Sacramento or Las Vegas. And that has some Spurs fans thinking like, yeah, he may not be it. But I'm here to remind you that this is still a rebuild. Players are still in development, and you got to have a little patience. That doesn't just go for Blake Wesley. It goes for Wemby. Yeah, you're going to have some patience with Wemby. It goes for Malachi. It's even going to go with Keldon. Look, we're still exercising patience with Keldon, although maybe some of y'all are thinning out on those patience, but it is what it is. This team is still in development. You hear the players last season saying, we're young, we're going to get better, we're going to get better. Well, guess what? You may even hear that for a little while next season, especially with bringing in Wemby, and you got to mesh all that together. And look, patience is just part of a rebuild. Now, granted, I said it before, I'll say it again, the Spurs are not in a capital rebuild rebuild and need to make trades and, it has to happen. Perhaps it's more of a retooling, rebuilding, baby letters, but it's still a retooling / rebuilding process nevertheless. And Blake Wesley is a part of that as of now. Yeah, he's probably going to be in the G League. Yeah, he's probably going to get spot minutes here. He may even get time on the court, heavy minutes, and probably not play great. And he'll have his days where he plays great. And guess what? He'll probably go to the G League and play great. And every fan's going to be saying, bring him back, bring him back. Yeah, that's going to happen. But patience is the name of the game, not just for Wesley, but for this entire franchise. Look at Popovich. I think I've never seen him exercise this much patience with the team in recent years that he has been exercising of late. So before you discount Blake Wesley, just kind of sit back, take a breath, and realize, yeah, the process continues. The rebuilding process continues in San Antonio. And Wesley's going to need his time to take his lumps too. Again, we'll go into some numbers about his play in the Summer League and last season, his rookie year. But yeah, perhaps we need to cool a bit on those expectations and be a little patient. Let's go and bring in our guest. He is James Pledger of San Antonio Sports Star. There he is. Look at him looking cool with his nice, awesome Blink 182 shirt there and cap as well. Let me guess, you're a fan. I'm going to take a wild guess that you're a fan.
Yeah, it's a fair venture guess. I'd say you probably collected a little bit of evidence and came to a reasonable conclusion on that.
They call me Batman for a reason. The world's greatest detective. Look at that. Make sure to follow James on Twitter at @IamPledger. He is the host of Extra Innings Pledger on San Antonio Sports Star and the co-host of the Saturday Morning Hangover. And he is my good friend, known Pledger for years. Little known fact. in the early 2000s, I used to co-host a show on what was then called ESPN San Antonio. And guess who was my producer? Mr. James Pledger. So we go way, way back.
I've been at this for a while, huh?
Just a little bit. Yeah, man. Yeah, but you're moving up the ranks fast. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You got your own show now, Extra Innings with Pledger. I mean, my goodness, I know you're going to brag about that in a while, but yeah, you've come.
I am speeding down the highway like a 62 Corolla.
Yeah. Well, speaking of speeding, a lot of Spurs fans are getting little the speedy vibes in the sense of they want Blake Wesley to hurry up and be Blake Wesley, this all great point guard that the Spurs desperately need. And this all stemmed from what some, not all, some Spurs fans feel was a lackluster play out in the Vegas Summer League or just the Summer League in general.
They want him to be Speedy Claxton?
No, they want him to be speedy with his development. That's what they want. Pledger, I know when we were talking about the topics today, you were kind of like, well, what's going on? Well, you just got to scroll through social media. You'll see some, not all, Spurs fans are kind of doing this already. Come on, Blake, let's hurry it up. Let's hurry it up. And some are even saying that a wasted pick. I'm not kidding you. They're saying that he ain't it. Pledger, you want to come on and talk about why those Spurs fans need to back away from the ledge a little bit and just realize this is still a process with his team/players.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of absurd to think that, I don't know, how much of Spurs Nations do they expect? Do they want him to be an all-pro? Do they want him to be an all-star? Do they want him to be first-team All-NBA? Like, what are the expectations for Blake Wesley, truly, who was taken with their second or third first-round pick last year at 25th overall? Their third. Mm-hmm. Their third first-round pick at 25th overall.
Right. Yeah. And let's not forget this too. He spent, as I said earlier, he spent a bulk of his rookie season in the G League. He was kind of in and out and, got his minutes in the NBA, but they weren't steady minutes like you saw Devin and Sohan and Trey Jones get. So he's kind of still behind the learning curve a bit. And plus, just a little bit more background too. What really is getting Spurs fans kind of starting to get impatient with him is that in the Summer League, they just see him playing at one speed and one speed only, and that he's not connecting on his outside shots, bad shot selection. So they're just seeing that not clicking yet. But last I checked, I think all Spurs last year had a horrible time from the perimeter. It wasn't just Blake. Almost all of them have to work on that perimeter shot, James.
Wow. I can remember a certain person on this radio station, the Acquired Taste, Mr. Mike Jimenez, spent most of his time killing Jeremy Sohan for just that. I don't know what the expectation is now these days for a 10th pick, for a 20th pick, for a 25th pick, like Malachi and Blake Wesley were. Mm-hmm. But I liked everything I saw out of both of them early on. I mean, correct me if I'm remembering wrong, or as Freddie Coleman likes to say from ESPN National, help bring some memory to my memory. Mm-hmm. Jeremy Sohan was second team all rookie, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay. Is that not a good accolade for a rookie to get?
That's a great accolade. And
Malachi Branham showed marked improvement in the more minutes that he got. And by the way, coming into the league was thought to be, while still a project at that point in time, had a more developed game offensively than either Sohan or Blake Wesley coming into the league, correct?
Right.
Okay. And Blake Wesley, when drafted, the knock on him was he plays in an extremely breakneck speed, likes to get up and down the court. Like, that was kind of the scouting report on him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it takes time to break habits like that. You can't rip down and rebuild a shot mid-season the way Jeremy Sohan did and expect him to be Steph Curry by, week 6 of the season. It's not possible. Like, if these are the expectations we have, I feel sorry if Victor Wembanyama is not first-team All-NBA and not in the MVP conversation in his first year.
That's coming. You can see it already. The Spurs fans are going to be flipping tables if that doesn't happen. But as far as Wesley is concerned, even a fellow friend of ours, Brandon Medina, he was on Locked On Spurs recently.
Don't be that guy, Brandon.
And he's out. He's out on the Blake Wesley fan wagon. He's out.
So because in 37 games with the Spurs and the rest of his time in Austin, averaging about 18 minutes a game, averaging 5 points a game during that time, by the way.
Right.
That's
basically
not considered a successful rookie season for a 25th overall pick.
Apparently not. Now, I'm not ready to discount Blake Wesley quite yet. I think next season or this upcoming season, we'll see what he can do because I'm expecting him to get a little bit more playing time. But we're going to get into some of the numbers. I do. And I'll tell you why. We're going to get into some of the numbers. We're going to get into some of that. What did he do with the summer league? Why those Spurs fans that are kind of out on Wesley already need to cool their heels a bit right here on Locked On Spurs with James Pledger of San Antonio Sports Star. Hey, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times, you heard that right, 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. It's a lot of money. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Check it out. That's $200 you can spend betting from everything from the money line to the over and under to who you think is going to be the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. I mean, what more can you want? Well, there's no better place to bet on MLB than on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. I go there. I love they're looking at their NBA futures, their projections on the Spurs and Wemby. It's all there. You got to go to FanDuel right now. Sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnNBA and get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOnNBA. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with James Pledger of the Saturday Morning Hangover. He's also with his own show, Extra Innings with Pledger. You can catch that all at the San Antonio Sports Star. Follow him on Twitter at @IamPledger. Now, before the break, Pledger was like, you expect Wesley to get more minutes? And I actually do. We're just going to say default. We're going to say Trey Jones is a starter, right? That's just by default. So, and
maybe, see, I think
he is. I think he is.
He might be.
You're not.
I can make the argument for campaign.
Right, and I think anybody can. What is he, like a veteran? Been there, done that. Was under Chris Paul, all that good stuff. But I think the Spurs are really high on Trey Jones. Popovich just glows about him. I don't see that move, at least initially. I mean, Trey Jones has got to wet the bed, for an X amount of team for him to lose it. I think it's just his starting job to lose. But I think Wesley's definitely going to get a spike in minutes, simply because they got no choice. I don't think, unless I don't see them relying on Sohan heavily to run the point, a spot here and there, as we saw last season, sure. But I think Wesley, despite considered his faults among some Spurs fans about he's playing one way and one way only speed, I think that speed is going to come in handy next season with the makeup of the team. They're going to want to run downhill a lot more. Wemby has proven he can run with the little kids, even though he's 7'3" without shoes. So I think that's going to lend to
7'3.5".
3.5. Okay. Well, I think that's going to lend to that system. They're going to want to play a breakneck speed, get the rebound and go. I mean, you saw that last year.
Barefoot next year?
I didn't hear you say that again.
Is Wemby playing barefoot next year?
Nope. But I would have surprised
I'm
if
just
he
trying
does.
to figure it out because I thought most NBA measurements were in shoes.
Well, in that case, he's 7'5" then in shoes. So I just think that his skill set, his Wesley's, his style of play is going to lend to the Spurs next season. You're going to want, I mean, you can't tell me Keldon and Devin and Jeremy and Wemby too are going to want to go downhill. Not to say that Campaign cannot or Trey Jones can't, but I think that skill set is going to really benefit the Spurs next season. But you're right. I think Campaign does put a wrinkle on us if he's still on the roster by opening night or even after the All-Star break.
But I like what he brings to this team. Like, it is a team that needs better, especially at the point guard. Yeah. I can argue he is the only other point guard on the roster other than Trey Jones. Mm-hmm. I know they got a lot of guys that can do multiple things, but he is the only true point guard currently on the Spurs roster. So I really, really like the addition of Campaign and his ability to bring along the younger guys like Trey Jones, like Blake Wesley, who I just want to ask a hypothetical question to you.
Sure.
Who would Spurs fans rather have? Wendell Moore? Nikola Jovic? Did he even sniff the court in Miami last year?
Yeah, he didn't play at
all. Baldwin?
Nope. No,
Ty Washington?
I see where we're going with this. Yeah, it was very thin.
Peyton Watson? Andrew Nembhard?
It's thin out there.
I can make an argument because of people seem to love this kid in the NBA. 34th overall, the Thunder selected Jalen Williams, right? Mm-hmm. Jalen Williams, you could make the argument, maybe they should have taken him, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have Blake Wesley's numbers in front of you?
I got his summer league numbers, which we're going to get into in a while.
Okay, I've got his numbers from last season. Okay. Compared with Jalen Williams, who a lot of people seem to really love, right? In 49 games, averaging 18.7 minutes per game, Jalen Williams averaged, get this, 5.9 points, 4.9 rebounds, 1.6 assists on and shot 40%, 40.7 from behind the arc. Do you know what Blake Wesley did last year in 37 games?
Hit us.
He also averaged 5 points, almost 3 assists, 2 rebounds, while shooting 38% from 3.
And I'm going to back that up and why Spurs fans need to cool their heels by really putting into microscope what Blake Wesley did out in the summer league. Now, granted, it is a summer league, and yes, very limited time, limited games, but he was, the 5th leading scorer on the Spurs roster at 12.8 points per game. He was, the 4th leading rebounder at his position, guard, 6 rebounds per game. He was 3rd on the summer Spurs in assists at 3. And in steals, he averaged about 1, good for 4th among the roster. And then in minutes played, they gave him a lot of minutes, 29 minutes. So I think what's really, at the end of the day, I think what's getting the Spurs fans is just they're not seeing variety yet. As far as pacing, like slowing down, like you don't have to go at 100 miles an hour anymore. And also defensively, I think defensively they have issues with that.
I'm sorry, were there a lot of teams in the summer league playing very slow? Were there a lot of teams slowing the pace?
No, they were going.
In the summer league, are there a lot of sets being run?
Nope. It's just, let's see what you got. That's basically what the whole theme is. Let's see what these players got.
In the summer league, are they usually trying to showcase certain players like the Rockets, Cam Whitmore, or like when Wemby was there, or early and after Wemby left, Julian Champagnie or Malachi Branham before they shut him down? Like the Spurs have summer league to get a better read and run things through certain players. Right. Blake Wesley was not one of those players. They probably asked him to do something completely different. They may have asked him, hey, Blake, we want you to push the pace and we want you to focus on facilitating. Sounds a lot like what he did in the summer league.
But and also, too, those numbers just show that he maximized that time. I mean, he was productive. Yeah. Yeah, he maximized it. And, and obviously, also, too, I mean, you're getting overshadowed by Wemby and Champagnie and Malachi, but quietly, it was a decent outing for Wesley.
Yes.
Again, yes, you understand that level it was summer league, but nevertheless, that's for me, I take that, James, as a good foundation to carry into preseason and training camp. That's how I see it. Hey, hold that thought, James.
Absolutely.
When we get back, we're going to continue our chat about this and get into. But before we continue our chat with James Pledger, I want to talk to you about Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee, which is a proud local sponsor of Locked On Spurs. Did you stay up late last night? Are you anxious about Wemby and his debut in the regular season, and you're up all night just thinking about that, and you need a kind of a pick-me-up today? Well, look no further than Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. They're for busy people on the move, or even people who just want to chill out and relax. So if you're in the mood for a latte, a cold brew, the Red Bull infused Lightning Bolt series, which you have to try, I guarantee you'll like it and it'll get you going. Go to Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee right now. Over 300 5-star reviews cannot be wrong. They got a wide selection of dairy alternatives, low-calorie options, and caffeine-free drinks for you. We just want to take it easy. Although he has a hot mic right now, I'm pretty sure James Pledger doesn't want to take it easy, right, James? Here's your testimony about Mudslingers right here.
The Orange Julius, or what do they actually call it?
The OG.
I call it the Orange Julius because it sends me into a time warp back in the North Star Mall over in that corner entrance where I went to get an Orange Julius.
Yeah, no, they're good. I know you've had them, but that's what I'm trying to say. Everybody in San Antonio loves them, and they're only there at Mudslingers. So if you need to get your heart pumping, you want to try the Wemby inspired alien drink. I don't know if Pledger can handle this, but it's
what's in it?
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's a full can of Red Bull, kiwi, and green apple, all mixed together. So
I'm in.
You're in. Yeah, I know I'm in. So, but if you don't need caffeine, everybody, you want to take it easy, they got the OG OJs we're talking about. Gives you those nostalgia vibes. They are located at 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive near 281 and 1604. Open every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can find them on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, Facebook at Mudslinger SATX. Life is too short for a bland coffee. But we got James here, so let's continue our chat about your silver and black. So let's go to wrap up our chat about Wesley real fast, and then we got a fan question for you, James.
Cool your Jets, Spurs fans.
Okay, well, there you go. There's the summation right there. Just cool your Jets, Spurs fans, because guess what? Those Blake Wesley Jets may come in handy next season when the Spurs need a run and gun. And if he could do that, Now, obviously, is there room for improvement? Of course.
Yes.
That shot needs to get better. Yes, perhaps there's a pacing issue as well. But that's what you get when you have a very young team then especially a player that was drafted as a teenager.
There is legitimately room for improvement from all of the young people on this roster, whether it's him or Malachi or Keldon or there is room for improvement. Period. End of story. All of them. Trey Jones, all of them.
Even Wembayama. Yes, he's going to have his period. So chill out, Spurs fans, on Blake Wesley. Is it okay to have expectations for players and you want them to get better? Of course. But let's not go overboard and already discount the kid before he's having a real legit shot at making an impact on the Spurs roster. Hey, before we let James go, we do have a fan question. I am pulling it up right now.
What's our fan
question that he wanted to ask on the next Locked On Spurs? All right, so here it is. This is from on Twitter at JG Crawfish. So here is the question, James. He says, Jeff, I am baffled by their strategy here, there being the Spurs. What's the long game? Why do we have like 50 picks in the next 5 years ton of expiring contracts. Are we trying to have a roster of 10 first-round picks in 5 years or a super package for 2 huge stars? ? So he wants to know what is going on with the Spurs and amassing this war chest of picks.
Mm-hmm. All right, JG Crawfish. Do you want to build around Wemby before you know what you have?
There it is, right there. That was
I just want to ask a serious question, because we keep hearing how he's a generational talent that nobody in the league has ever seen before. He's able to do things that aren't possible on a court by someone his size. He has a skill set that is unseen in basketball. How do you build around that? Like, seriously, until you get him on the court, find out strengths, weaknesses, and basically the pieces that are there, the pieces we've all come to love through this rebuild, the Keldons, the Devins, the Treys, see which pieces work best with him, and then try to then supplement what works, what doesn't, add what does, what subtract what doesn't, and then supplement all of the war chest of picks and expiring contracts you have after you have a better idea of how best to build around Wemby.
Right.
You want to put pieces around him that end up not fitting or working well or helping to accentuate his style of play, and then be stuck with that person on a bigger, more expensive deal that is harder to move.
Right.
I mean, Greg Popovich is famous for saying you don't skip steps. One of the steps is going to be taking this rare talent that has never been seen before and finding out the best possible way to build around him, especially in the NBA, because we haven't seen him play NBA style rules. He's played over in Europe in a different set of rules with different level of talent.
Right.
It may be better to find out once he gets into the NBA and figures out the NBA game and how he best acclimates to that.
Right.
How then to build around him once you figure that out. And everybody's talking about Dame Lillard this year, and hell, there even another player that's been brought up outside of him. I mean, there's not a lot in the free agent market. I get that you have money in your pocket, and it's like when you're a kid and you've got $10 and you go to the mall, and it's not about taking that $10 and collecting more so that you can get the big, nice thing that you really want. But instead, you had $10 and you were at the mall, so you felt compelled to spend it when you were a kid.
Yeah.
The Spurs are not trying to do that. The Spurs are taking their money, they're taking it home, they're putting it in the bank, and then they're going to get something that they truly desire at that point. That's what these picks are for, because outside of Dame Lillard as the trade piece, or maybe Jaylen Brown, we don't know of his availability. I mean, what other names have really been on the market in terms of trade? Like Evan Fournier? Does that excite you? Are you trying to make a move just to make a move? Or are you proactively thinking about the future? Because think about what we've heard this offseason. Well, Joel Embiid might not be happy in Philly. Said, I want to win a ring, whether that's in Philly or somewhere else. James Harden's a name. Do Spurs fans want James Harden?
Not at all.
So, like, truly, what are you spending that money on that actively makes you an instant contender for an NBA title? Names that could become available in the future, though, if you're taking the 50,000-foot view approach and looking at the broader picture, Luka Doncic is a name that could become unhappy. We've heard rumblings of Trey getting disgruntled in Atlanta with Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota, possibly Zach LaVine in Chicago, Joel Embiid in Philly, who I mentioned, Pascal Siakam in Toronto, if they decide to rip it down, Miles Turner, who is a name that I've mentioned before. But how do these pieces fit with Wemby? You know how they fit in the NBA game, but how does Wemby fit? Because whatever you do is going to be Wemby is going to be the center and focal piece of everything, and it's about how other players play off of him. Look at what the Dallas Mavericks did this past year. They went and traded for Kyrie Irving, and everybody from the outside looking in, Mavs fans were stoked because they got a big name named Kyrie Irving. Everybody from the outside looking in goes, how's this going to work? They're two ball-dominant guards that need the ball in their hand, and I don't see how this fits together without one checking their ego. And we all believe that Kyrie is not the kind of guy that's going to really check his ego at the door. And Luka is one of the faces of the league. Why would he do it? And plus, Dallas is his team. And so we saw that friction all last season to where Dallas, who was in the Western Conference Finals, didn't make the playoffs because the pieces didn't fit. So you don't want to rush to a conclusion before knowing what you even have in the bank. And I'll take those assets later and flip them for something once you figure out what you have in a Victor Wembanyama and what the best way to actually put pieces around him are. Because what happens if Devin Vassell takes a massive leap this year? Sure. What happens if Keldon takes another jump this year?
And they don't want to resign.
What if they form a big three of their own, and then you're just supplementing other smaller pieces or one big piece to play off of those three?
Yeah. This reminds me of the early Tim Duncan years. They hit a home run in the draft, Manu and Tony, to supplement with Timmy. Different circumstances here, but the same concept. You drafted Wemby, Duncan. Now, what best pieces fit with him? That possibly could be already here via the draft, just like Tony and Manu were via the draft. And that is, as Pleasure mentioned, Devin or Keldon or Sohan.
I didn't even bring up Sohan's name, and we saw the massive strides he took as a shooter throughout the season and how well he takes to coaching.
And here's the other thing, too. I see it more on the, I guess, economic side of it. I like how you highlighted the player side of it, like what pieces fit. Economically, if you take these picks as currency, well, then you're already seeing it right now with teams asking the Spurs, can you help us facilitate this? We'll give you extra for just throwing in a second-round pick, being that team that has the flexibility and the pieces and the financial money, all that good stuff to help other teams. And guess what? You just saw it right now with the campaign deal. You know,
they are now really over the cap floor.
Yeah.
And only have the MLE to use.
Exactly. So I see it on the financial side of it. And guess what? That's going to carry this team for quite a long time. It's not overnight. They're going to have these picks for a while now. So imagine, we'll use the mall analogy as Pleasure did. So imagine you're at that toy store and a bunch of your friends are there with you. And for me, it was, do I want to get Soundwave? Do I want to get the Laserbeak figure? Or do I want to get the Optimus Prime figure? And my friend says, well, I want the Megatron figure, but I only have $2. Well, look at me sitting here with all this extra money and all these extra toys. So how about this? I'll give you some money. You see where I'm going with this. So that's why I like what the Spurs are doing with amassing these picks. So they're just setting themselves up for on the court, as Pleasure highlighted, pieces fitting, and for me was economically and how they're viewed among other NBA teams as a facilitator where the Spurs can have that leverage on deals. They can have that leverage to outbid other teams. Let's just say a team wants to blow it up. What if it's Cat? We'll use Cat, for example. Blow it up. Well, the Spurs are probably one of the few teams in position to have the money, the picks, and yes, the players to make a deal like that happen. Again, just an example. But there's your answer, JG Crawfish. You got the player side and the economic side. How about that? 2 for
Hope that
1.
helped, JG.
Yes. Pleasure. Talk to us about the Star, your show, Extra Innings, and of course, Saturday Morning Hangover.
Well, Extra Innings with Pleasure all week. As a matter of fact, this week I filling in for Rob Thompson for a few days this week, and then Friday I'm filling in for Rudy J, and then Monday again I'm filling in for Rudy J. I'll also be producing the Blitz. I'll also be hosting Extra Innings, so I'll be on from 6 a.m. until 7 p.m. the rest of this week and the beginning of next week. Got a live deal out at the new Refuel out at 8288 Tally Road out at 1604 in Calabria. We're doing a chicken tender eating contest there.
I got you winning.
Winner gets $500.
I've seen Pleasure eat before. We've had late night chows at Denny's. The food just showed up, and I said, "Okay, let me take my first bite." Oh, he's done. And
yeah,
that's how. Yeah. So if you're in this contest, Pleasure, my money's on you.
I don't know if I'm able to be in it or not. I kind of want to know if I can.
You'll be on the side like this, like pathetic. I can do better.
Yeah, but with that said, though, the Saturday Morning Hangover with Cowboys Camp in Oxnard coming up here at the end of the year. We are taking a short hiatus for a few weeks until after Cowboys Camp, and then we'll gear back up as football season starts to hit ahead. But much needed day off basically for me on the weekends, or just in general throughout the week to allow me to recover, especially with the amount of work I'm going to be putting in here. So just going to take a small hiatus on the Saturday Morning Hangover, but come August, we'll be back in full effect and ready to rock.
And by hiatus, everybody means just go to Rue Pub at night, and that's where he'll be. That's it. That's his.
We can basically have the Saturday Morning Hangover there live in person.
He is James Pleasure with Saturday Morning Hangover. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at @IamPleasure. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. You guys are the everydayers. Tomorrow's show, more Wemby, more Spurs talk as we get ready for the doldrums of the NBA and get ready for next season. But for James Pleasure, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.